Time to dismantle another sexist bigot. In this case, Simone de Beauvoir. It came up in my YouTube feed, and if we're going to shove her down my throat, I'm going to dismantle her. Now, the first thing I want to show in this case is that Beauvoir admits that women did not want to work for a living. Here we are, 1634, roughly around here.
Okay, now you have the opportunity to be free, but you have to seize it. You have to make it. Another example she gives is she says, middle-class women in France wanted nothing to do with feminism. Because here's what it meant. Right now I'm a middle-class woman. I don't work.
Exactly. I don't work. This is the gender bourgeoisie, to the nobility. There's no incentive for them to change their lifestyle. They're already on top. It's like Esther Villar said in the 70s, that to be a woman is essentially to be someone who doesn't have to work.
I don't have any expectations outside the home. I have servants to take care of me.
She has no expectations outside the home, and she has servants to take care of her. So she's in the position of nobility. There's only one way to go, and that's down, right? Who's going to choose that? And by the way, this is why women also bucked the vote when it first came out, because men had to sign up for conscription to get the vote. And women didn't want to be conscripted. They were afraid they were going to be shipped off to war and get their faces shot off. So naturally, they bucked it. It's only later when they realized they weren't going to be forced into conscription that they went for it.
I like my life. If you liberate women, I might have to get a job.
See how the feminists screw around with language? So getting a job, which is something you don't want to do, is liberation. Black is white, night is day, right? So they're always trying to put their privileged position, which they shot for, which they work for, as something being forced on them.
I might have to go out in the world. Basically, I'm afraid to do that because I don't know how to do it. I've never done that before. I'm not equipped to do that. I'm equipped to stay home and entertain and have servants and have a nice house. I can do that. Raise children.
Men would love to do that because we're also equipped to stay at home and have a nice house and entertain our friends. We don't get that choice. Men have to work for a living. You might get the odd guy who lucks out and being born into money, but generally men do not get that. And also, they're trying to frame it as this is fear of the unknown. Like these women don't know what their lives would be like. These wealthy upper class women know exactly what the alternative is. They look at their female servants and they could trade places with them in a heartbeat. They don't want to. Women have choices that men lack in the past.
Children, great. Don't try and make me. Don't even give me the opportunity.
Don't strip me of my privileges.
To have to go out in the world and earn my own keep. It was terrifying.
Yeah, it was terrifying to have to work for a living. Exactly. And Beauvoir is no different herself, or Beauvoir, however you say her name. She wanted to marry a man and be taken care of. And I'll prove it to you. It says so right here. Let's see. I got it time stamped here. Try to get married. 5:35. Let's get here. Now listen.
So her early life, she's born into a sort of upper middle class family that has pretensions towards aristocracy, which are never achieved. And so there's a very clear plan for Simone, who by the way, was
not for her. She's involved in this plan. See, they're trying to make it as though she was going to reject it. She wasn't.
A brilliant child. She was clearly brilliant the whole time. And the plan is, if you're upper middle class at this time in France, is your daughter gets a dowry. And then she becomes a wife and a mother. And the bigger the dowry, the better husband you can sort of purchase for her.
Good way. What's your name? Cecil? Good way of framing it. You're purchasing a husband. That's what a dowry is. It's a bribe to say, I want the man. And the best man, by the way, is the man with the most money. You built up the most status. That's what the best man is.
And therefore the better life that she'll have. Along the way, things sort of go wrong. The family loses some of its money, certainly not poverty in any way, shape, or form. And it becomes clear that she's going to have to make her own way in the world, which is fine for her because she never planned to do the whole dowry, marriage, children thing anyway.
Well, says you, Cecil, and says her, no doubt. But she was going to go through with it. It's just that her plans fell through. So this is no different from any other case. This is sour grapes, like who wanted marriage to a rich man anyway? So this is posturing on her part. You are a sucker if you thought that if they succeeded in landing this guy, that she wouldn't have gone for it. Sorry, I don't buy horse shit.
This way she didn't have to tell her parents. At the same time,
I wasn't going to tell them anyway, buddy.
Her father was very interested in her education. She received some of the finest private and public instruction you could possibly receive at that time.
Really? Really? Know when that was? That was in the 1920s. All you women who claim that women had it hard in the past, this woman had all the rights to get educated, as many as men, and she was. So her family wasn't holding her down. Society wasn't holding her down, right?
So she was not in any way deprived of an education because she was a girl. She received just a truly extraordinary education.
Thank you for admitting that women's impression is bullshit.
As is demonstrated by the outcome. So she combined a brilliant mind plus a home that encouraged her to study and learn. Her father used to edit the classics. I love that. Carefully edit them so she wouldn't get any of the bad.
That was one of those terrible patriarchal fathers that said, let's educate our daughters, right? And by the way, this woman achieved nothing in her life. Nothing worthwhile.
Bad parts. I always want to know what those are. I don't have an example, but I want to know what, if you read the Iliad, what do you cut out? All the fighting? Achilles got upset, then he felt better. Yeah.
Here he is bashing male accomplishment, bashing the Iliad. If you take out the hateful, sexist propaganda out of feminism, there's nothing there. Nothing.
I don't know. But he gave her these edited versions of the classics very early on. She went to both like a private Catholic school, but also a public university, well, sort of a public high school, I guess we call it, at the same time. So she had this very mix of excellent education from many sides and encouragement from the home.
Yeah. And the home encouraged her. So how was she oppressed or held down, Cecil? She wasn't in any way or form. Women had their rights. Any right they didn't go for, as was shown earlier, was the rights that meant they had to sacrifice of themselves. Okay? Now that we know that horseshit's out of the way, let's see. We're going to deal with this false propaganda, okay? Before we get into the false propaganda, I want you guys to know that Mr. Pink and Yellow and our compatriot Shield for Men have this video where they discuss this, article, Marriage as Economic Slavery for Men. And they debunk all the horseshit that they are going to say here at 11:40. Okay, 11:40. Let's start here. This horseshit. Right here. Sorry.
2, we have this whole issue of legal rights, right? And for virtually the entire history of women, women have been grossly under-righted, I guess you would say. They don't have a lot.
You're full of shit, dude, because you just admitted there were women that had servants and didn't have to work for a living. And that this woman had all the rights to get educated. And by the way, when she did get educated, everyone, she didn't go into STEM, as usual.
A lot of legal rights, right? A lot of times they couldn't own property. If they owned property, they couldn't sell it without their husband's signature. They couldn't buy property without their husband's signature. Or if they got money, they actually couldn't own a bank account, right? So that
this is all fucking horseshit. And I'll tell you why. Because when the guys talk about this, take the green pill here, they bring up the fact that, or I should say this article brings up the fact that women could own their own money. They didn't have to give it to their husbands. They didn't have to put it into the family. They could rack up debt and the husband was responsible for it. So if a woman didn't pay her bills, her husband was put behind bars for it. And he had to hope that his wife paid the bills to get him out. That's in this article. Women had more rights than men, not fewer. This is bold-faced propaganda. Cecil, you're spreading bold-faced propaganda. These are lies.
all these laws, you can't go out in public without your husband or a male relative if you have currently in.
That isn't even limitations on women. Women don't want that. The average woman doesn't want to have, what do you call it? Low status, nobody guys coming onto her. So she wants her real male relative or some kind of male bodyguard to keep off the peasants. This is another privilege disguised as, some kind of limitation.
In some Islamic societies, these legal impositions on women that hold them back, keep them down. She says this has.
You mean like this woman here, who got all her education free from her family, who paid for it. She never had to work a day in her life. This kind of lack of rights
To be rectified. You can't have this. This deprives women of the opportunity to be humans, to be human and to be free, which she equates.
Nonsense. These women have more rights and more freedoms than men. It's just that they always choose the same thing because it's always the best choice. Leeching off a man and have an easy life is better than working for a living. That's a fact.
As being the same thing. But she says this is not uniquely female. This is another thing she keeps pointing out. Look, if you're deprived of your rights because you're...
This is bullshit. They try, and she brings up male slavery as if there's any comparison between the two. Okay, I'm not going to put you guys through any more of that. Let's see, is there anything else that I'm missing? Oh yeah, we'll get here. They talk about Cinderella here, 1938. Yeah, we'll start about here. Key documents.
Dialed in. And so Simone Beauvoir, she documents this very closely. It's almost a sociology as she works through. But it's a sociology towards this philosophy. And she says, all right, here we are. I think very much like we are today. It's not perfect. Economic opportunity for women is not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than it's been before.
Perfect. It's beyond perfect. You have more rights than men.
Legal rights for women are not perfect, but they're a hell of a lot better than they've been before.
And a lot better than what men had before and even now.
Now what? Now she says we have to look. This is not freedom. We're not free yet. Now we have to look at the stories we tell ourselves, the models that we use to choose our lives. And we know, right? Look at our society. Women can do anything they want. Right? But mostly men too. Same thing.
No. Men do not have the choices the options that women have.
They get married. Why? Have you ever seen the Disney Channel? Cinderella? This is your plan. You grow up, you're beautiful, you meet Prince Charming, you get married, you have a family, you live happily ever after.
Yeah, everything but the family, dude. Everything but the family. If you look at the Cinderella, this is the end of it, right? Is she pregnant or holding a baby? No. You don't even see the prince sitting with her. The fantasy is this woman finds some very, very rich man to leech off of, and she doesn't have to work for a living. And there's no children involved, and she's young and beautiful and admired by everybody. That's the female fantasy, right? And giving these choices, women always choose that because it's the best option. And you can tell by their actions. That's why you talked about those French upper class women being afraid of having their privileges stripped and being forced to go to work.
That's the plan.
It was Beauvoir's plan too, but it fell through, didn't it? Okay, let's see. I just want to say problem. Let's see, marriage. This guy, of course, points out how bad marriage is, but it's bad for men.
People get married and it doesn't work out, so they get divorced, and you go, okay. And then they get married again and it doesn't work out, so they get divorced. And they get married again. What the hell is going on?
Well, it's very simple. As Beauvoir showed you earlier, women want a man to leech off of, and men are willing to do anything to have a woman in his vicinity, dude. That includes you too, Cecil. And of course, when the woman gets tired of the man and she can get alimony and child support, she dumps him. The man dusts himself off, and because he's got a lizard brain, instead of saying, well, maybe I should choose a different option, he gets married again. That's what's going on here.
Why? Well, because that's one of our huge narratives. Look, you can be single.
This is not about telling each other stories. This is actual male and female desire working here.
And looking for a partner. You can have a partner and be engaged, working towards marriage. You can be married, and you can be freshly divorced. We have this arc. We love this arc. We all know this story. If you're in any place in that story, everybody loves you. You know how to talk about yourself. People know how to understand you. If you ever break out of that arc,
if men ever do,
people are not happy.
That's right. Marriage for men is servitude, and people are not happy with free men. This is an exercise in male freedom, not female.
Right? You cannot say, oh, are you dating? No. Oh, what's wrong? Depressed? You say, no, I'm just happy on my own. Oh, no. Oh, no.
People are hostile to men who actually are living on their own and with freedom, right? This is male oppression, I should say. And women have always made these choices, Cecil, because they are the best choices. Leeching off a man and not working for a living is a great deal. And anything else they choose, well, is always extra. That's why, Cecil, you have women who get careers and then retire early, because the career isn't necessary for them to get by when they have male servants to leech off of. Okay, so I'm not going to put you guys through anything else. Beauvoir is a typical sexist bigot. That's what feminists are. They're sexist bigots. They live easy, privileged lives, and then they try and disguise that and gaslight, society with that being oppression. Yet they never leave it, right? Because that's where they want to be, right? So I've debunked this horseshitter, and like I said before I end, I just want to, tell you guys, remind you, go to this video where Mr. Pink and Yellow and Shield for Men tell you the truth about marriage and how it was in the past for men. Thank you.